Okay, I want to introduce you guys to really basic character rigging in After Effects. It's pretty much just a case of creating a parenting chain, but doing it intelligently. And you can get some fun, albeit slightly limited results. So to do this, I've just kind of created my own little micro project here. And what I've done is I found an audio clip of Kermit the Frog counting eggs. And I kind of went in and hacked at that and just streamlined what it was that he was saying. But if we listen to it right here in After Effects, we get.
Hi all, Kermit the Frog here. Let us count, shall we? Okay. We have 1, 2, 3.
All right, the little peeping as the eggs are hatching as he's counting them. All right, so I went into Photoshop and I created these particular assets. Okay, so first of all, I have a head. Okay, it's on its own separate layer. I have a body. It's on its own layer. You can see the one arm is drawn attached to that, as is the weird little frond thing going around his neck. And so as he counts, he's actually going to physically count with his fingers. So I have a hand position for 1, a hand position for 2, and a hand position for 3. Now, in addition to that, I have a couple of different head shapes. So the first one that we've already looked at is a head shape with a closed mouth, a head shape with an open mouth, and a head shape with just a weird expression. I don't know, Kermit the Frog, his expressions are fantastic. All right. So, in addition to those assets, I also have a separate upper arm and a separate lower arm because I want him to be able to bend and articulate those arms mechanically, not unlike how our arms function. All right, so this is my Photoshop document right here. Okay, so I will go ahead and hop into After Effects. I'll double click on my asset bin and I'll go ahead and locate that Kermit.psd. When I import it, I want to do composition retain layer sizes and hit open. I'll just go with the option merge layer styles into footage and hit OK. Then I'll double click on the new composition that it created for me. And I have all the layers exactly laid out as they were in Photoshop. All right, now something that I'm going to do to make my lip sync a little easier is I'm going to color code the different heads. All right, so closed mouth, I'll go with pink for the closed mouth. For the open mouth, maybe I'll do peach. And then for the weird face, maybe I'll hop down here and do orange. All right, so they're all kind of color coded in the same vein. But I think I'll leave all the other assets color codes the same. Now I'll go ahead and I'll lock the background and then I will grab the composition that has that edited layer or audio file on it, and I'll bring it here into After Effects. Okay, so I can press
Hi all,
spacebar
Kermit the Frog here.
and listen to the audio, but I can also hold down Command on a Mac or Control on a PC and scrub the timeline.
Let us count, shall we? Okay.
All right, and kind of get a sense for how the timing is going to play out in relationship to this dialogue. Now I can also click on the little drop down for that asset. I'll expand the audio, all right, the waveform, and I can actually see where he's seeing certain words in the waveform. For instance, if I come over and he says hi ho, that's probably this first big block of waveform. Okay, so this peak is a K for the Kermit. That's a T. V. Okay, so that makes it easier for me to be able to analyze what it is that I'm going to be animating to as far as my timing is concerned. All right, so I'll go ahead and leave that waveform open. And now I want to do the basic rigging. First thing is I'm just going to take all of my head positions and I'll use the pick whip with all three of them selected and just parent that to the body. So now any transformation I apply to the body, it will also apply to the head because they are now the children of the body. I am going to come in here and for the hand position, because I have three different versions of the hand position, I'm actually going to press Command or Control R and turn on my artboard rulers. And I'm going to drag a guide over from the side and from the top that kind of correspond with the point where I imagine the hand is going to connect to the wrist. That way I can take the hand position 1, hold down Y is in yellow, and use that to bring the anchor point over to that particular point. The reason why I drew or brought in these guides is so that as I'm moving from these 3 different assets and trying to sync up their anchor point, I can make sure that that remains consistent across the board. Okay, I'll go ahead and take those 3 different hand positions and use the pick whip and actually attach them to the lower arm. Right? I'm going to move the upper arm down in the layer ordering just to make things a little easier for me. Now I'll select the upper arm, hold down Y, and move that over to about where the elbow goes. Now I can test to make sure if that's a good placement by expanding the transform attributes, grabbing the rotational position, and just playing around with it right there. And I think that's going to work just fine. I'll collapse that. I'll select the upper arm, hold down Y, and actually translate that over here somewhere where I imagine that shoulder joint to be. Okay, let's parent the lower arm to the upper arm. And now what's cool about that is as I transform the rotation on the upper arm, the lower arm is going to follow suit. And because the hands are parented to the lower arm, they're going to follow suit as well. So for the moment, we can just go ahead and take this arm and let's just drop it back behind his body until he actually starts counting. Then I'll have him raise his arm in the air and make the hand gestures for 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now something that I've tried to emphasize in class is trying to break apart the problem solving. We don't have to solve every little piece of the puzzle all at the same time. So what I will do at the moment, now that everything is basically rigged up to the body, is before I forget, I need to select the body, and I'm going to move the anchor point of that body so that it ends up being down here. So I want his body as he's talking to be able to maybe wiggle back and forth a little bit. I want his, not a linked scale, but I want him to be able to kind of bob a little bit as he's talking as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and collapse that. And I think for the moment what I'm going to do, just to try and simplify things, is I'm going to hide the hand in the arm assets because that's not a concern of mine during this initial portion of dialogue, which is like the first 4 or so seconds. So what I can do is I can click on this little icon right here, just to the side of hand 1, hand 2, 3, lower arm, and upper arm. And I can even do the background. All right, what that's called is a shy guy. Is when you tap on it, this little face hides behind a fence. All right, then I can come to the top of my timeline and I can click on it, and it's basically going to hide all those assets for me. All right, so that they are out of the way, and I can focus on animating the body. So what I wanted to do is bob a little bit when he says hi ho, and then Kermit. Maybe I'll think about if I want him to bob on the Kermit, but I want him to, when he says frog, I want him to kind of wiggle back and forth.
Frog here.
All right, and do that in sync with the timing that I've established for myself, the timing that the dialogue is establishing for me. All right, so that's about where the eye position is. So I'm going to expand the body and transform attributes, and I'm going to set a scale keyframe right there. I think I'll back it off just a little bit. I'll set another one. So this first keyframe, we'll hold that 100% scale. And as he goes in to say hi, I think I'm going to translate him 110% along the y-axis. Now, I'm also going to hide heads 2 and 3 and just focus on head 1 for the moment. I'll also make sure that my artboard is set to fit up to 100% so that I see the entirety of the artboard here. So hi. So I'll go ahead and find the O for the ho and set a duplicate keyframe at that 100% and then back it off by 2. Change this to 100. And then maybe we'll let that kind of peter out a little bit more slowly. So hi ho. All right, let's see how that looks. I'll just tap the space bar.
Hi ho, Kermit the Frog.
Maybe I could play around with that timing just a little bit more.
Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here.
I kind of like that. Let's see what happens if I select all these and do an easy ease. So I can do that by clicking on Animation, Keyframe Assistant, and adding an easy ease there.
Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here. The Frog here. Kermit the Frog here.
I think I'm going to have him do it on here as well. All right. So let's start this at 2 seconds. I'm going to click the diamond to set a duplicate keyframe. All right. Set this one at, we'll do 110 again. Maybe back this off. All right, and take that back to 100%. See what this looks like.
Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here. Let us count, y'all.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna play around with that keyframe. I'll hop into the graph editor, make sure that I only have the scale selected. Let's zoom in on it. And let's move those handles out.
Frog here, let us count, shall we? Frog here, let us count, shall we?
I think I overshot it just a little bit. Let's go ahead and dial that back.
Frog here, let us count, shall we? Okay.
Maybe I could play around with this one too. Oops. Just want to grab that other handle back there.
Frog here, let us count, shall we? Frog here, let us count. Frog here, let us.
Okay, let's move.
Pretty frog here, let us count, shall we? Frog here, let us count, shall we? Frog here, let us count, shall we? Okay. Frog here, let us count. Pretty frog here, let us count.
Okay, I could go in and I could tweak that up a little bit, but you know, in addition to just having him bounce when he's talking, I want to have him kind of wiggle back and forth a little bit. So I want him to wiggle when he says frog. So I think I'll start it right here. So I'll set a rotational keyframe. Maybe advance forward 2 frames. Let's change this rotational value to -4. Advance forward 2 keyframes. Maybe do +6. Advance forward 2 keyframes. Maybe -6. And then come to where he says here and set that back to 0. All right, so let's take those, and this time I'm just going to hit Fn, F9 to make those have the easy ease.
Kermit the Frog here. Kermit the Frog here.
All right, that is way too fast. So let's space these out more.
Kermit the Frog here. Let us count, shall we? Kermit the Frog here. Let us. Kermit the Frog here. Let us count, shall we? Kermit the Frog here. Let us count, shall we? Okay. We have 1. Kermit the Frog here. Let us count, shall we? Okay. We have 1, 2. Kermit the Frog here. Let us. Kermit the Frog here. the frog here. Let us count, shall we? Okay. We have 1, 2.
I'm just continuing to adjust that timing. That went a little further down the timeline than I had intended.
Kermit the frog here. Let us Kermit the frog here. Let us count. Kermit the frog here. Let us count.
Space some of these out just a little bit more.
Kermit the frog here. Let us count, shall we? Okay. We have 1. Kermit the frog here. Let us count.
Swatches from the beginning.
Hi ho, Kermit the frog here. Let us count, shall we? Kermit the frog here.
You know what might be fun is when he says frog, maybe we have him lean forward, another +6.
The frog here. Let us count the frog here.
And I think I'm going to go in the graph editor and take that one keyframe.
The frog here. Let us count the frog here.
And I'm going to take this scale keyframe and let's have him anticipate just a hair.
The frog here. Let us count the frog here. Frog here. Let us count, shall we?
Okay, I could always go through and you know, play around with it a little bit more, but
Frog here. Let us,
I just really want to emphasize word okay as well.
shall we? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to come down and double check my waveform. So, all right, that's about where the OK is. So I'll back off a few frames, set a duplicate scale keyframe. I'm not going to have him stretch quite as much, maybe 105. Go back to 100. Oops. 100. 105. And then out here, about 100.
Okay. We have 1.
All right, I'm happy with the general gist of this.
Hi ho, Kermit the frog here. Let us count, shall we? Okay. We have 1. Hi ho, Kermit the frog here. Let us count the frog here.
All right, so now let's start doing some lip syncing. Now this is why I decided to color code the different head assets, is because we're going to have to duplicate these a bunch of time to do the individual mouth positions. So his mouth is closed about up to this point. So I'm going to put my timeline indicator right here, hold down Alt, and I will hit the right bracket key. It's just 2 keys to the right of the letter P, right? And now I'll turn on the open mouth asset, bump the cursor over 1, hold down Alt, and select the left bracket key. All right, come over here, and now I will hit the right bracket key to going to truncate that little asset. I'll duplicate this head position, bring it down here. Okay. I'm wondering if that needs to be a little shorter. Oh, just kidding. This needs to be a little longer. Okay. And I'm just going to alternate between these different shapes. It's a little tedious. And there are ways to automate this, but you would have to go in and learn a little scripting to be able to do it. So for somebody who's just starting out, it's a little easier to manage it visually, even though there's the tedium in doing so.
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog. Hi-ho. Deep.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop right there with the lip sync, so you get the idea, but when I hit the space bar...
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here. Let us... Kermit the Frog Let us count, shall we? Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and leave his mouth in a closed position until he starts talking again and saying the letter 1. All right, so I'll actually just drag that out beyond that point just for the moment.
We have 1.
And let's go ahead and start to animate that arm. So I can click the Shy Guy icon right here, and it'll bring those arm assets back for us. All right. So I'm going to come here at the 5-frame mark, and I will expand the upper arm, and I'm going to set a positional keyframe for both it and the lower arms. Okay. Now, if I wanted, I could just select the lower arm and the upper arm, and I could press P for position, and it would only show me those transformable attributes. So it says 1 right about the 512 mark. Sorry, we don't need the position attributes. I'm going to remove those keyframes. I meant the rotation, so I'll press R to isolate the rotation, set keyframes for those two. Okay, so now I'll just select the upper arm and rotate that up here, like so. Once again, I apologize. I'm going to back up. I meant to set these keyframes at the 5-second mark, or approximately 5-second mark. Now I'll come up to the frame 12 and rotate those into position. Like so. And just for the moment, I'm going to turn off the visibility on hands 2 and 3. So move these back to the 5-second mark. I'm going to come to about 5 seconds and 6 frames, and I want him to kind of overextend his arm, so he raises it a little bit more exaggeratively. So he brings it up and then swings it down into position. And let's go ahead and take these 2 keyframes and hit F9 to get the easy ease.
We have 1. We have 1.
Okay. I'm going to, I'll have to do this one at a time. I'm going to copy the rotational position for the lower arm, move over 2 frames and paste it. Then I'll come down for the upper arm, copy that one, and paste it after 2 frames. That way, I can double back on myself, and I can animate in a little follow-through animation. This brings it up and goes 1, and there's a little bit of a bounce to his arm. It might be a little too much. Let's pull that back. Let's see, this one is 31. So I'm going to come in here and let's do 36. Sorry, not 36. Yeah, maybe it is 36 that I want. Okay, so this position for the lower arm is 79. Let's do negative 74 here, so just a difference of 5 on each one. All right, I'll grab those 2 keyframes and actually, let's do easy ease on all of these with the exception of that first one.
We have 1, 2. We have 1.
So now what I'm trying to do is I'm holding down Command, scrubbing through the timeline to find where he says 2.
We have 1.
All right, so it looks like it's about 6 seconds and 19 frames. And so I'll use that as an opportunity to hold down Alt right bracket key to basically turn off the visibility on hand 1. We'll turn on hand 2. I'll hold down Alt left bracket key and do the same thing for number 3. Right, so it's somewhere right in here.
2, 3.
And I need to turn the visibility on that back on.
3. We have 1, 2, 3.
Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy these keyframes right here. So I think I'll need to do it for one asset at a time. So I'll copy that and come over here where it changes to 2, and I'll go ahead and paste this, but I want to move it over. And then do the same thing for 3. Scooch it over here.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, let's do the same thing for the latter 3 keyframes on the upper arm. Okay, now what I'll do is I am going to back up about 3 keyframes and copy the last keyframe position from lower arm and paste it at the timeline indicator. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. So you just hit Command V, do the same thing for the last keyframe for the first arm throw for the upper arm. So copy that and paste it right here so that this keyframe and this keyframe are identical. So the arm in theory should stay in place until he raises it up again. Okay, so we'll do the same thing in between sequence 2 and 3. So back it up 1, 2, 3 frames. Copy this one, paste, copy this one, and paste.
We have 1, 2, 3.
All right.
2.
Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to offset the timing of the change of finger positions just a little bit so it doesn't put such a direct emphasis on that.
2, 3.
I like how that timing is layered. We have more overlapping action occurring now.
We have 1, 2, 3.
Okay, now what we can do is continue animating
2.
the mouth for the 1, the 2, the 3. So I'll come right here, take this closed position, slide the end up. We'll duplicate the open position, Command D, drag it down. Okay, now this time I want to have the weird face occurring between where he opens his mouth to say 1, 2, and 3. So I'll hit Alt left bracket. Sorry, I need to select this asset. Alt left bracket. All right. Alt right bracket and bump that back. Command D to duplicate the open mouth position. Drag it down here. Okay, duplicate that frame. Back it up, duplicate open mouth, bring it down here, duplicate weird face, drag it down, and extend that out for the duration of the timeline.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so I can play around with the timing a little
We
bit.
have 1, 2, 3. 3. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I could animate in some little body bobs and wiggles and do some more things, but that gives you the general idea as to how I go about animating a character. Now, one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the motion blur for everything. So I'm going to hit Command A, select all the assets, hit the motion blur toggle, and then turn that on the timeline. Go back to the
Hi
beginning.
ho, Kermit the Frog here. Let us count, shall we? Okay. We have 1, 2, 3.
All right, that gives you
Hi
the
ho,
general
Kermit
idea
the Frog here.
as to how to animate a character very simply in After Effects.